Alex Eala said 3 words in the middle of a live interview at Queen's Club in London. She was mid-sentence, talking about her own match, her own game, her own future. Everything was routine, professional, composed. The practiced ease of a 21-year-old who has spent enough time in press rooms to know how these things go. And then, over the players' lounge speakers, a name was announced. Serena Williams. Victoria Maboko. Please report to court. Alex Eala stopped talking. She broke off completely. Pause that lasted maybe 2 seconds but felt significantly longer. And then 3 words fell out of her mouth. Unfiltered, unplanned, completely and utterly spontaneous. Oh my gosh! Another pause. And then, sorry, this is just so crazy to hear her name. 6 seconds of raw, unscripted emotion from a 21-year-old who had grown up watching this woman on television. Who had cited her as the reason a tennis career felt possible. Who was now, in June of 2026, competing in the same tournament, breathing the same air, on the same grass, in the same players' lounge, and could not finish a sentence because the name came through a speaker. The clip spread instantly. Not because it was controversial. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was so completely, undeniably, uncomplicatedly real. That kind of emotion, you cannot manufacture that. You cannot prepare for it. You can only feel it, and sometimes it comes out in public mid-sentence in front of cameras before you can stop it. But those 3 words are only the beginning of this story. The girl who grew up watching to understand why those 6 seconds hit the way they did. You have to understand who Alex Eala actually is. Not the ranking. Not the titles. The human being behind the racket. She grew up in the Philippines in 2004. She watched Serena Williams the way most kids in other countries watch superheroes. With a particular reverence that goes beyond sport, beyond statistics, beyond any individual match result. Serena wasn't just a tennis player on a screen in Manila. She was proof. Proof that a woman could walk into the biggest arena in the world unflinching, unapologetic, and completely dominant. Proof that the sport had room for someone who did not fit the narrow historical template of who a champion was supposed to look like. For a young girl from Southeast Asia in a sport historically defined by players from Europe and North America, that proof meant something that cannot be fully quantified. She began her journey at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, quietly grinding through the junior circuit while most of the tennis world had not yet learned her name. In 2022, at 17 years old, she won the US Open Junior Girls Singles title without dropping a single set throughout the entire tournament. The first Filipino player in history to win a junior Grand Slam singles title. History written in straight sets. And then, the detail that makes this story feel like it was constructed by someone who believes in fate. That same year. That same US Open. While a 17-year-old Filipina was riding the first line of her legend on the junior courts, Serena Williams was on the main courts writing the final chapter of hers. Her farewell to professional tennis. 2 trajectories crossing at the exact same tournament. One beginning, one ending, without either of them fully knowing what they were part of. The passing of a torch that neither of them knew was happening. By the time 2026 arrived, the journey from that US Open Junior title to Queen's Club in June 2026 was not a straight line. It was the grinding, accumulating, sometimes painful process of building something real. By 2025, Eala had transformed into something entirely different from the promising junior who once watched Serena from a Manila living room. She entered the Miami Open ranked 140th in the world and, in one of the most jaw-dropping runs in recent WTA history, defeated Yelena Ostapenko, Madison Keys, and Iga Swiatek in consecutive matches. 3 Grand Slam champions back-to-back-to-back. The tennis world took notice in a way it hadn't before. She ended 2025 ranked in the top 50. She posted on Instagram, "My dreams have truly come alive. This marks the beginning of what I hope to be a long, happy, and fruitful career on tour. See you in 2026. And in 2026, she delivered on that promise in full. She arrived at Queen's Club riding 6 consecutive grass court wins, a WTA 125 Birmingham Open title. Her maiden championship on grass, claimed in a grueling 3-set final, and the kind of dense, undeniable momentum that you can almost feel through a screen. This was the Alex Eala who arrived at Queen's Club on June 9, 2026. A 21-year-old who had spent her entire life watching a legend, now competing on the same tour, the same grass in the same players' lounge. And the legend was about to walk back through the door. June 8, 2026. The tennis world loses its mind. The announcement came without significant warning. Serena Williams, 44 years old, 23 Grand Slam singles titles, 4 Olympic gold medals, 4 years removed from professional competition, returning to the WTA Tour on a wildcard into the doubles draw of the HSBC Championships at Queen's Club, partnering with 19-year-old rising Canadian star Victoria Mboko. Not a rumor, not a hint, confirmation. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Queen's Club, a venue that had only returned to the women's WTA calendar in 2025 after more than 50 years, suddenly became the center of the entire sporting universe. The same courts where the grass still carried the memory of the players who had defined the sport were about to host the most anticipated comeback in women's tennis history. Serena herself was characteristically honest about it. Queen's Club feels like the perfect place to begin this next chapter. Grass has given me some of the most meaningful moments of my career, and I'm excited to be back competing on one of the sport's most iconic stages. When asked at the pre-tournament press conference why this moment, this tournament, she gave a very Serena answer. "I don't know. I had nothing better to do." The room erupted, but the laughter carried something real underneath it. Because you do not come back to professional tennis at 44 on a wild card after 4 years away just because you are bored. You come back because the fire never went out. Because the competitive instinct that drove 23 Grand Slam titles does not simply turn itself off because the calendar said it was time to stop. She came back because she wanted to. And that desire, expressed simply and without ceremony, reminded everyone what had made her extraordinary in the first place. The day everything collided. June 9th. On June 9th, Eala was at Queen's Club completing her first-round singles match against Zhang Shuai. She won 6-3, 6-2. Composed, dominant, exactly what her Birmingham form had promised. Clean, efficient, the performance of a player carrying real momentum rather than riding the memory of it. Afterward, she sat down for a press interview. Relaxed, professional, talking through her win. The kind of routine post-match conversation that happens dozens of times at a tournament without producing anything anyone remembers. And then the players' lounge announcement system called the name. Serena Williams. Victoria Mboko. Please report to your match. And Alex Eala stopped mid-sentence. And 3 words came out before she could organize them into anything more composed. "Oh my gosh." And then the honesty that followed immediately after. "Sorry. This is just so crazy to hear her name." Which was, if anything, more revealing than the 3 words themselves. The self-awareness that she was in the middle of an interview. The instinct to apologize for the interruption. And the complete inability to stop the emotion from arriving, because it was not performing a feeling for an audience. It was simply having one. In a full press conference the same day, she went further. "It's incredible. I did not think that I would be able to experience that in my lifetime. To be on the tour while Serena is competing as well. And then, of course, she is the GOAT and such an inspiration. To be able to see that firsthand and experience the tour at the same time as her, that is something I'll remember for life." Remember for life. A 21-year-old at the height of her own momentum, on the eve of what was shaping up to be a career-defining run. And the thing she says she will carry forever is not her Birmingham title, not her wins over Grand Slam champions, not the ranking milestone or the tournament trophies. It is the simple fact that Serena Williams came back. That she was here for it. How does a story get more powerful than that? Stay with it, because the next chapter changes everything. Queen's Club on June 9th. What the building felt like Queen's Club that day was not a normal tennis venue. It was a living, breathing monument to a collision of eras. An usher standing outside Court 1, where Eala was finishing her match against Zhang Shuai, estimated he had fielded 20 inquiries about Serena's practice schedule before Eala had finished her own first set. 20 people in a row, walking past the court where a 21-year-old was competing for her Wimbledon seeding campaign, asking about someone else. Think about what that means. For a young player fighting for her moment on that exact court, the world was physically walking past her match to find someone else. And yet, and this is the part that reveals everything about Eala's character, she didn't flinch. She won her match cleanly and convincingly. And then she sat down and called Serena's comeback incredible with the same openness she had used when describing it moments before. No bitterness, no competition, no attempt to redirect attention back to herself. Pure unguarded awe. When Serena and Maboko walked out onto the Andy Murray Arena, they did something nobody was entirely certain they could do. They won against the third-seeded doubles team of Nicole Mellicher-Martinez and Ellen Perez, both decorated, experienced doubles specialists. Serena and Maboko won 7-6, 6-2. Serena posted a 75% first serve rate. She was not there as a gimmick. She was there as a competitor. "I was having so much fun playing with Vicky," Serena said afterward. "She was really able to hold up the team and play big on the big points. We never played together, but it just felt so natural." Maboko, 19 years old, standing next to a woman who had won 23 Grand Slams before Maboko was old enough to form a tennis memory, looked at Serena and said simply, "I feel very honored to play with you, Serena. We really did the business out there." 2 generations. 1 match. And somewhere in that image was the reflection of Eala and Serena too. The idol and the inheritor, both in the same building, the same tournament, the same sport at the same time. The context that made it even stranger earlier that same year, at the ASB Classic in Auckland, Eala and Jovic had partnered in doubles to defeat Venus Williams and Elina Svitolina. Alex Eala, the girl who grew up citing both Williams sisters as the reason she believed a tennis career was possible, had beaten Venus Williams. And now Serena was here too. She had spoken about this precise moment years before she lived it. In a 2022 interview with Vogue Philippines, at 17 years old, she said, "These people have blazed a trail for so many other young tennis players. Seems like they've been around forever, and you feel like they can keep going and going, but it's just a reminder that they're also people. No matter how much they've done for the sport, they have to move on with their lives. I think it allows room for the next generation to naturally climb up the rankings and be an inspiration to the following generations." She said those words in 2022. She was 17. And now, 4 years later, she was living inside the exact contradiction she had philosophically accepted. The next generation she described was herself. And the inspiration who was supposed to have stepped aside had decided, apparently, to step back in. The sport was folding time on itself. And Alex Eala was standing right in the crease. The next day, the part that hurts if you had written the script for Eala's Queen's Club Week, you would have made it simple. Arrive on momentum. Beat Zhang Shuai. Advance. Ride the emotion of Serena's return. Let the stars align. Make the final. Win it. That is not what happened. On June 10th, the very next day after her viral interview moment, the very next day after calling Serena's comeback something she would remember for life, Eala walked onto the court to face 6th seed Iva Jovic in the round of 16. 6-2, 6-2. 76 minutes. Not a close loss. Not a match that could have gone the other way with 1 or 2 points changed. A clinical, near-flawless dismantling by a player who had now beaten Eala 3 times, twice in 2026 alone. Jovic won 81% of her first serve points. Eala won 52%. Jovic produced 26 winners against 9 unforced errors. Eala's 12 winners were buried under 19. Same story as their Roland Garros meeting weeks earlier. Different surface, same results, same scoreline, same comprehensive margin. The Jovic-Eala dynamic was beginning to look less like bad luck, and more like a genuine tactical problem that needed solving. Jovic, in her post-match press conference, was gracious with the particular gentleness of someone who had just beaten a person she genuinely cares about. "I wish we could play at later stages of the tournaments. Hopefully when both of our rankings go up, we'll be on other sides of the brackets until semis or finals. It's more fun playing doubles with her than being on the other side of the net." She had said something similar after Roland Garros. One of those days I wish there could be two winners. She meant it both times. For Eala, exiting the tournament meant something else entirely this specific week. Because Serena Williams was still in the building. Still competing. Still winning. And Eala, the girl who broke off mid-sentence just to absorb the sound of her name, who called this experience something she would remember for life, was now heading home while the legend continued forward. There is something genuinely painful about that symmetry. The young player who idolizes the returning legend doesn't get the match she might have dreamed of. Doesn't get the moment on the same court, the story that writes itself. She gets the players' lounge goosebumps. She gets the press conference quote. She gets 6 seconds of unfiltered emotion caught on camera. And then she gets a 6-2 loss and an early exit while the 44-year-old icon keeps playing. What this week actually revealed Alex Eala did not win the HSBC championships. She did not make the quarterfinals. She did not get the storybook run that Birmingham had seemed to be building toward. But here is what this week in this building actually produced. A moment of pure, unmanufactured human emotion. 6 seconds of a 21-year-old unable to finish a sentence because the person she grew up watching walked back into the room. A reminder that behind every ranking and every scoreline is a human being who started somewhere small, who watched someone on a screen and decided that the screen was not far enough from where they were standing. A reminder that the sport can still do that. Can still produce the collision of generations, the passing of torches, the specific kind of beauty that only exists when the person who inspired you is still present enough to remind you exactly why you started. Serena Williams came back. And nobody, not the journalists, not the fans, not the tennis world that had already decided it had seen everything, was ready for what that felt like. Especially not Alex Eala. Especially not the girl who grew up watching from Manila, who crossed the world to train for this, who typed 11 words to her best friend after losing to her and broke the internet with the simplest possible expression of love. Especially not her. Here is the question that stays. As Serena continues, as Eala and Jovic and the generation they represent rises to meet whatever this era of women's tennis becomes, is this the beginning of the most emotionally charged chapter the sport has ever produced? Or is it the final passage of a story so large that nothing afterward can match it? There are no clean answers. Only the feeling this week left behind. And somewhere in a player's lounge in London, a 21-year-old stopped mid-sentence because a name came through a speaker. And everything she had ever believed about why this was worth chasing, all of it, was suddenly, briefly, completely confirmed. Laban always.